Hey, it's Alex from Eigenworks. Been about a month since Pulse, where we had a conversation about how your CS team and your product teams are interacting today. We are hard at work chipping away at this study. We are working towards some kind of not quite a full-on like ebook or report, but some kind of really practical guide to managing these processes better. We're thinking of webinar, or blog post, or blog series, as well as, of note, a second part of the study where we actually talk with the product management side of the house. So part one that you helped us with is kind of customer successes side of the story. And then for part two, we want to round out the picture with product management. So what I have for you today is some kind of conceptual slides for what this the sort of content and the sort of structure that this guide might look like. And I would love your feedback for whether we're on the right track. Are there areas of this that feel sort of incomplete? A lot of them will feel incomplete, but incomplete and superficial. Where would you like to see more depth? Where would you like to see more practicality? Where do you really want to understand what's working well for other people? Things like that. So please do share your feedback and we'll work that in as we drive towards these final deliverables for the study. So to start, I want to kind of represent in simple terms the core loop here. Let me go back one slide. There's this core loop of products coming out of product management via CS getting launched to the customer base and feedback being pulled back from the customers through CS to product. Those are the two. There's other elements of the job as I'll elaborate on, but those are the two sort of information flows or workflows that we were focused on unpacking. And the common feeling that we heard by far was that when feedback is trying to make its way from the customer base through CS to product, that from CS's perspective, it feels like it just ends up in a black hole. And so here are a couple quotes that kind of exemplify that. I've got a couple points in this draft slides with some quotes. I won't read them out, but you can pause and take those in. Well, so what then? So what if, product management, there's smart people over there. So what if they're not using customer feedback? Well, the consequence is that that feedback arrow kind of retracts and gets smaller, and the CS team and customers themselves are less likely to continue participating in your product development process if they don't get that acknowledgement of all the feature ideas and discussion that they are contributing. That's a consequence. Then there's these added pressures. These were things that I wasn't expecting to hear about in the interviews, but that added more like animation for me, I think, on how difficult this information flow is to manage. So for example, many of the customer success managers I spoke with talked about how differently product requests from your largest customers or your whales get handled versus your maybe typical customers or kind of the masses. This puts a lot of pressure on both groups, right? So if the relationship isn't healthy, if that core loop isn't healthy, the added pressures like this can really break things and really expose those weaknesses in the process. Another one is when product, inevitably, as is bound to happen, no matter how predictable or well ironed a product or engineering organization is. This is a commitment. A priority changes, an estimate was off, and customer success then has to, if customer success has been transparent about the roadmap in the lead up to some anticipated launch, customer success has to be the bearer of that bad news. Again, that is an added pressure that is prone to finger pointing and accusation if the underlying relationship isn't healthy. And then another one that I was not thinking about coming into the study was like a replatforming or any kind of other disruptive technology change that product is planning. Maybe it's this big infrastructure project that's going to ensure the product will continue to scale for years to come. But for the existing customer base, it means they might have to go through some kind of migration, or it's going to be putting strain on the CS team or support team because they're constantly going to be asking for, why does this screen look different, or things aren't where they used to be. If it's a major UX overhaul, stuff like that, anything disruptive and major that comes from product with great intention and ambition can again be a source of added pressure that can really just cause this flow and this overall relationship to collapse. So how do you manage all that? Again, just to give you a sense of the kinds of quotes that we're pulling in here, and we're going to do this for all the different elements of the reports. Here's a quote around how it feels to be on the CS side of things when there's a failed commitment. So returning then to this core loop with the black hole that we've so clearly identified. Again, here's what we have in mind for deliverables. So when we do part 2, one idea is that we talk to product managers with the ask of like, CS is having a hard time getting their feedback through to you today, clearly from the first part of our study. What should a template look like for CS to use with their customers to capture feedback that will be useful to you? What are the 3 things that define a useful piece of feedback? Is it like the dollar value of the customers that it affects? Is it, more depth around what they're trying to achieve? Some understanding of the technical complexity of what they're trying to achieve? What part of that unpacking do you see as customer success's job and what they're best positioned to do versus what you're best positioned to do as the product manager? That's one of the deliverables we'd like to work towards overall. For part 1, though, we're thinking of some kind of webinar, like I said, like a little bit bigger than a blog, not as big as like an ebook, some kind of guide for both product and CS to understand how CS is feeling about this relationship today. And that's what you in the interviews helped us do. So a lot of text on this slide. I'll let you pause and take it in. But this is all the specific actions that were working well for one CSM or another that we're kind of trying to compile and present as a guide, as some formation of a guide to all of you to help repair this process. So let me take that in. This is kind of the bullet point format, text heavy. The other format that we're thinking about is returning to that diagram of the core loop and just sort of putting all these really crucial moments up on that map visually. And one of the most crucial ones, for example, is when CS is actually unpacking or processing that feedback from customers. Are you just passing along those superficial feature requests? I want this button to look differently and I want to be able to do things my way or whatever. Or are you going deeper into what you might call the jobs to be done or the problems to be solved or how this connects to the overall strategy of that customer? Are you actually going deeper? So some CSMs in this study told us how they're doing this and how they've had to learn to do this. That this feels like one of the biggest gaps in the process that we want to add some kind of prescription to help you do it better. Kind of a minor step in the process is the feedback channels themselves. I actually don't think this is as critical as it may seem. I would recommend simplifying them. You definitely don't want to have many different places for feedback. One of the best quotes I heard around this, though, I just didn't pull it into this draft, was, I feel like we need a system for handling process or for handling feedback, but we don't necessarily need software. I really liked that. There are a ton of tools around capturing customer feedback, product feedback today and sorting it, like purpose-built software tools. I don't think that didn't show itself as a critical variable here that you need to have one of those tools. It could be in person. Like this can be pretty low tech as long as the functions are there for each other and have empathy for each other's roles. I think most channels that you could come up with can probably work. But the big issue then on the product side, and this is what we really want to dig into in part 2 when we talk to product managers, is opening up that decision-making process. So what are all the inputs for you? And then how are you sorting through it? If you can expose that to customer success and probably other groups like sales and marketing, like there's probably so many groups around the organization that would love to see that expressed more transparently. That would help a lot. That would help with that feeling of the black hole. I think that would help it go away slowly. And then of course, if you open up the decision-making process, when there is feedback that doesn't make it through the decision-making process, as long as it's transparent and there's a clear no and why not from product management, they can easily take that back to customers along with all the exciting products that have been launched and say, hey, that feature request that you shared, we didn't do it. Our strategy is focused elsewhere. We really want to deliver an amazing experience over here. And so we weren't able to get to that, or that's not something that fits with our strategy. Here's a workaround, or here is a partner of ours that can handle that for you. that clear no is a crucial variable in repairing this often broken relationship and loop today. So those are 4 of the areas of focus for, and as you can see, it involves both product and CS. So we absolutely need the product side of the story. But this is the kind of guide that we're thinking of putting together. Again, would love your, in kind of a meta way, would love your feedback on it. And I hope it doesn't feel like it goes into a black hole. So we'll be working that into the final report. We want to make sure this is really useful to you and others like you. So thanks again for participating in the study, and hope we come up with something that's going to make an impact for you on your job.